I mean, there are many feathers in his cap, but he's an IIT and IIM alumnus. What he is known for, he founded one of the most formidable development activism organization called Pradhan. The name all of you would be familiar because Pradhan had a very big presence in Odisha as well, has a very big presence in Odisha as well. He also set up one of the country's first microfinance institutions, Basics. Lately, for the past over 6 years, he has been the chief executive of Rajiv Gandhi Foundation, a New Delhi-based think tank. And he was the brainwave behind Bharat Jodo Andolan, and now he is the national convener of Bharat Jodo Abhiyan, which emerged as a grouping of civil society organizations across the country post Bharat Jodo Andolan. And Vijay has been actively involved in mobilizing the civil society groups in our ongoing campaign and fight for protecting the constitution and constitutional rights of our citizens. Vijay.
Thank you, Rajesh. And Yamini, it was a pleasure to hear you speak. Particularly, I was thinking of the first time I heard your father, Mani Shankarji, talking about, at that time it was not the 73rd Amendment, but the same ideas. And it's good to see how that idea is, moving intergenerationally. Wonderful. यामिनी जी ने बहुत सारी बातें की जो कि नेशनल लेवल पे बहुत वैलिड थी. द डिलेमा इन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इटसेल्फ कि हमारा फेडरलिज्म किस प्रकार का हो. शुड इट बी ए फेडरलिज्म ऑफ, जो अंग्रेजी में बोलते हैं मेल्टिंग पॉट, और शुड इट बी a federalism of a salad bowl? Or to put it in Odia terms, should it be a federalism of Dali or of Santula? No, Dalma is in between. Dali is all the lentils mixed together, becoming like almost one, with no personality left, right? That is the regimented federalism, and we did not opt for it. We opted for a Santula, right? Where you could still recognize the taste of every vegetable, the personality of every vegetable, and yet together it's a very wonderful dish. So our federalism was, remember, enacted in 1949 when there were over 540 princely states, and of course the provinces are under the British rule. And will the nation hold together was a big concern. And therefore, the topmost concern was we must remain a united India. And so to that extent, the constitution itself is kind of center strong federalist. If you want specific examples of that, look at, for example, who appoints, first of all, why do we need governors? Then who appoints governors? And read the difference of language between the powers of the president with respect to the cabinet of ministers in the union versus the powers of the governor with respect to the cabinet of ministers in the state. Both are elected, but the governor has much more powers to override the advice of the chief minister. There is no such possibility. The president shall go by the advice of the cabinet as provided by the prime minister. और बहुत इसके उदाहरण हैं. Yamini mentioned GST, and आपने देखा that how in practice GST has become much more of a centralizing influence, and through these more administrative stratagems of, ensuring releases of centrally sponsored schemes through UCs. What a wonderful example she gave at school. So in practice, our federalism is very mild. Lekin at least 2 or 3 times in our 75-year-old history, we've seen a blossoming of federalism, and those were the periods when the central government was not in a brute majority, and many of the state governments were not the same political party as the central government. And in those two periods, the center-state relations in practice were much more in balance of the states than they were in the balance of the center. And those states which had a strong regional party and that party had some role in the central government in terms of a coalition, those states benefited both politically and economically because true power sharing happened. You know the example right now of what Andhra Pradesh is getting. Earlier the example of Odisha itself. There are many, many examples like this. And therefore, I think what is written down in the Constitution, what is practiced, are naturally very different because it's not only the written Constitution which ensures devolution of power, it is also the political system. And a major part of the political system is the political party. And if the political party in power is not federal in its internal structure, does not believe in unity in diversity, wants to impose a certain type of worldview on everyone, not only in its own membership, but everybody else in the country, then federalism has little scope unless it can be negotiated through coalition power. And we are seeing that currently, for example, in case of Andhra Pradesh. So that's one set of issues. But specifically, and I want to depart from what Yamini said here to more focus on Odisha. I want you all, आप सब उड़ीसा के बुद्धिजीवी हैं, elites हैं उड़ीसा के, influencers हैं, the youth of Odisha are here. I want you to think about these 5 statistics. Simple है. Odisha is the 11th largest state in the country in terms of population. 11th. In terms of GDP of the state, which is known as GSDP, Gross State Domestic Product, Odisha is not 11th, it is 15th. 15 number pe. So few ranks below what it should be if it was proportionate to its population. By the way, this has climbed dramatically due to the power dynamics that happened in the last 25-30 years. But then comes within the state, the per capita GSDP of Odisha is 21st in the country. अब इसमें तो कोई सेंटर का कोई रोल नहीं है भाई 15th GSDP तो आपका है ना आप उसको redistribute करिए how come being 11th in terms of population and 15th in terms of GSDP, how come you're 21st in terms of per capita GSDP instead of back to 11th or even 7th? इसका मतलब decentralization is not happening in Bhubaneswar also, right? And it's not only at the level that Yamini talked about. It is not from the state to the panchayats. It's significantly regional and community based. Not being from Odisha, I don't have to lecture you about the historic division in terms of economic and social development between coastal and western Odisha. And within coastal Odisha, among the upper castes and the other castes, OBCs and Dalits, you are all deeply aware of it. The question is, what has the state done to reduce that? But before I finish, let me give you the fifth statistic, which is really damning. Odisha is 32nd out of 36 states and union territories, 32nd in Human Development Index. इसमें भी तो कोई सेंटर का कुछ लेना देना नहीं है ना, पैसा तो आपके पास ही आता है. If you are, अगर नहीं होता तो how could your GDP be 15th? So let us not externalize this issue. We must understand that a lot of the problems are right here, and if the party is a regional party in power, yes, it can negotiate very well with the center to get more of the resources from the Finance Commission, from the new avatar of the Planning Commission called Niti Aayog, from the central schemes, etc., etc. It can get a few plum ministries. Mr. X can become coal minister, Mr. Y can become steel minister, Mr. Z can become shipping and transport minister. Yes. But what is it doing for the 32nd HDI rank of Odisha? What is it doing for the 21st per capita GSDP rank of Odisha? That is something firmly within your hands. So, will a regional party resolve that, or will a party which is regional but is also aware of, takes into account and does something about the internal disparities within Odisha? The 11 to 15 gap, we can say, नहीं हमारा रिसोर्सेज को एक्सप्लॉइट करके ले जा रहे हैं, हमारा मिनरल वेल्थ को बाहर ले जा रहे हैं, हमारा फॉरेस्ट को काट के ले जा रहे हैं, हमारा ये हो रहा है वो हो रहा है. ओके, 11 to 15. 15 to 21 gap and 15 to 32 gap. So merely having a regional party is not enough, and that is why a party which ruled for 25 years was very successful in some aspects. Odias can proudly say, look at the fact is our GSDP is at least 15th. At one time we were part of the Bimaru states. Wonderful. Bhubaneswar is a shining city. Wonderful. The steel plants between here and Jajpur and that whole area, Kalinganagar, fantastic. Paradeep is now a bustling port. Yes. But the numbers that I have given you are Odisha wide. I have travelled not only to Bhubaneswar and Cuttack, I have been to Kalahandi several times, I have been to Malkangiri, I have been to Keonjhar and Barbil, and I have been to the southern part of Ganjam. I forget the name of Chikiti and that whole belt. So I know the state, and there is a serious problem, Mr. Mahapatra, in this state about what I call this ignoring the three finger syndrome. You know, when you point one finger on somebody, the center, three fingers point at yourself, and this data that I'm giving you points at the Odisha political elite, clearly and squarely. I have no axe to grind, so I am willing to say this. At the end of it, you may or may not give me sweet dish with chai, but bitter truth is better. Okay? So the responsibility for the next political formation, and may Odisha be blessed with whatever that next political formation is not only to negotiate the rightful role and resources for Odisha in the Indian polity. It is to ensure that there is fair and more than fair redistribution of those resources, of the state's wealth, within the disadvantaged of the state, the disadvantaged regions, the disadvantaged communities, and if I may say, the Mook Badir community called the environment. Odisha has brought its Jal Jangal Zameen to the borderline now. You continue like this for another 5, maybe 10 years, you will not be seeing the same agriculture productivity. The famous forests will be all gone. Pollution will be not something that happens only in Delhi. And all the other environmental risks of global warming, etc., of course, continue to happen. Cyclones, as it is, continue to come regularly to Odisha. So please, the new political elite has to think of investing in the environment. The environment, unfortunately, has no natural spokesperson for itself. Nobody speaks on behalf of birds and bees. Nobody speaks on behalf of trees and rivers, other than so-called Andolankari activists, right? And they are given a bad name. But unless we take care of the Jal Jangal Zameen and Paryavaran widely, हमारा GDP growth will become hot air, literally. And therefore, it does not matter whether the political dispensation that eventually will crystallize in Odisha negotiates 10% or 15% more resources for the state from the center. What is more important is, does it devolve 50% more, 70% more to the regions, the communities, and the environment who need it, so that you get long-term, sustainable, equitable growth, which is the only way Odisha can become great. With that, I would like to spare some time for Q&A. I'm happier engaging in dialogue in the spirit of the Odisha dialogue rather than continue to lecture you. But I think you've got my basic point, that it's not Bhubaneswar versus Delhi that we're talking about. It is Bhubaneswar versus Motu. Motu, by the way, is the last village in Malkangiri. After that, you cross the river and you're in Telangana.